Good evening, Somers, and welcome to the Somers Town Board regular meeting of Thursday, November 18th, 2021. If you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Yeah.
They found it.
Yeah, they found the Pledge of Allegiance on the web. Okay. Patty, roll call.
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard G. Quinton.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirica.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rick Morrissey.
Present. Okay, our first order of business. Well, first of all, this is a hybrid meeting, so we're Zooming for people who are at home or away, and they can call in, text in, watch this on their cable, or come down and participate.
Or watch reruns.
Yeah.
You really have nothing to do.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to, our first agenda item is public comment. Make a motion to open public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So public comment is an opportunity for the community to come in, speak to the town board on any topic of their interest that is not necessarily on the agenda. And we say that because we like to get to the agenda items. And when we get to those, you're more than welcome to make comments as well. So with that said, is there anyone here for public comment?
There is.
Okay, ma'am? Come up and give us your,
Sure.
you could do that, yes.
Yeah.
State your name and address.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ann Castellano. I'm at 20 Woodcrest Terrace, Amawalk, New York. Obviously, I'm not a stranger here to the board.
I recognize you.
And the people that are present, the majority of people here are neighbors on Woodcrest Terrace.
Okay.
We're coming here today, basically, we did see the write-up in the paper that we're not planning on using speeding cameras, that they, after doing a study, they felt that the average speed was 36 to 41 miles an hour. Just kind of coming here today to kind of find out, is there a game plan? Is there something that we're going to do? Because it's a problem. And although it's saying 35 to 41 miles an hour, everybody that's sitting here can tell you that when they're on Maypac, when they're walking on Maypac, whatever, that speeds are much faster than that. Maybe it's not every single car, but it's still dangerous. And we just want to talk about that. So that's really all I have to say. I mean, I think some of the neighbors might want to come up and make comments, but we just kind of want to know what the board's plan is.
Okay, so, this is not the first time this board has heard of the issue with Mayapack Avenue and Woodcrest Terrace. So the things that we have been able to initiate, we've had patrol cars up there. We've moved our speed machine up there, which posts miles per hour. We've been giving summonses on Mayapack Avenue. And unfortunately, the issue on Mayapack Avenue was shared by other neighbors on Lovell Street, Warren, 135. Speeding in general is an issue for the town, and we are seeking ways of controlling it. People suggest speed bumps and things like that. They have their own detractions regarding liability and safety. But we do have, and we had, I think at the meeting before last, we had the police chief come in to talk about, and I asked him, and we will have him come in to give us updates on what speed initiatives they are taking, how many traffic violations. If you come come here. I think it's on, is it Monday or Wednesday nights?
Wednesdays, typically traffic, the one Wednesday a month.
Yeah, so Wednesday nights in this room is when they hear traffic violations. And if you drive by the townhouse or see the parking lot, there's a line of people that are coming in here that have gotten summonses. So we are, as a town board, who's open to suggestions. We seek those answers, same answers you're asking from the town police. And they've risen to the occasion. You know, they are out there paying special attention to Mayapack Avenue and Woodcrest. Hopefully you've seen the speed machine. Have you seen the officers out there?
Yeah, we saw the speed machine that was in the beginning. Over by Lakeview. But the problem with that machine is it wasn't working half the time. So it would flash, but it would show no speed. And it was only there for how long though? Just a few weeks.
I think they were doing two things. They had one machine that was giving feedback, and then there was another machine that was measuring and taking statistics. They wanted to take statistics without feedback, then look at, the statistics with feedback. And that's some of the numbers that we got from Brian, the chief, last time. But look, I mean, we're trying to analyze this. We're not trying to whitewash it. We understand traffic's an issue. We're trying to increase enforcement. We're putting decoys out there to, try to slow people down, traffic calming issues. Supervisor, I think you put in the budget, right? These two.
Well, one anyway.
Okay. A
Speed
speed table that we're going to try out. That's sort of like a speed bump in
Not as
layman's
aggressive.
term, not as aggressive, and see if we can kind of, put that down and see if that gets a good result. On the way here tonight, I mean, I saw one of our officers issuing a summons on Mayapack Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I know that right now there's a speed camera. If you're coming from Route 6 back up, on Mayapack, it's right before you go up the hill by the farms.
Yeah, there's one, that's on
Yeah,
Granite Springs.
but that, unfortunately, that doesn't help us.
Right.
Because they go by that, they slow down, and now they zoom by us.
That's
And-
another street also where they
Yeah.
fly up and
Right.
down that street as
Yeah.
well. And I did want to just mention one thing, because I know you said at the beginning about the speed cameras. The way I understand it, Roland, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not allowed to use speed cameras.
Right.
It's not that we don't want to. We are not, by law, we're not allowed to use speed cameras.
Okay, I have one of our neighbors that is here suggested maybe a flashing yellow light. Can we do something like that? I mean, something to, look, we all know that we're not going to stop everybody from speeding. We know that. But there has to be something done. Like every time I leave my road, literally roll down the windows, go all the way to the right and say, it's crazy, but anyway, I don't want to be the only one to
Yep,
speak.
no.
If anybody else wants to come up, please.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Connolly, 13 Woodcrest Terrace.
Hey, Jennifer,
I'm a mother of two very young children, a 4-month-old and a 2-year-old. So when I leave the house in the morning, it's terrifying to turn on there. I've had a couple of close calls where I look in my rearview mirror and the person is very close because they had to slam on their brakes to slow down. I understand that there are things being done. So I guess I'd like to know what the timeline is and also about that speed study that's being done. The machine that was put there between Lakeview Terrace and Woodcrest Terrace, I don't think that would have been the best place to place it. I'm not sure who handles where that goes, but the reality is that that's an upward slope.
Mhm.
So you're not going to really assess speeding when you're putting something where people are picking up speed, right? Like they're just starting to go, right? So I think that maybe that would be one thing that I would make a comment about. And then the other thing is just really just trying to understand, is this a maybe this is going to get taken care of, or is there a timeline as to what measures will be put in place? That's I guess, my biggest question.
Right, well, that's the same question we ask our, police enforcement and specifically the chief. And, feel free, any of the residents to call our police officer, our police chief, and make these suggestions about where the speed signs should go. I mean, a number of months ago, your neighbors came in and brought this to our attention. And, we directed the chief of police to go out, number one, to do a speed study, get the speed sign out there, and, do some enhanced enforcement, which has happened. You really, as residents, unless you see a police officer pulling someone over and giving them a ticket, you don't know that anything is happening. And that's why I kind of mentioned, on Wednesday nights, this place is filled with people who've been received tickets, and for the majority of them are for speeding. You asked about a timeline. I think we're in the timeline. Once again, if that speed sign was not in a location that you think is, so I would recommend either you email my office and I'll send it over to the chief, or you can email him directly and copy my office, and we'll follow up on it.
Okay.
Do you want to suggest where we should put it? But we do want to work with you, and look, this is not only a town problem, but I guess countrywide. But we get a lot of commuter traffic that comes through our town to get to 684 and train stations and the like. And we recognize that speeding in this town as a major issue, major public safety issue. And we're always open for suggestions.
And Rick, if I could add, the chief brought up a great point when he was here last time. Years ago, you would put a police officer there and he could stay there for 3 or 4 hours writing ticket after ticket, and people would say, oh, there's a cop there. Now, 5 minutes after the police officer is there, it's on Waze and everybody's using it. And they say, oh, I know there's a police officer. So it lasts for, we were talking to a police officer recently, and he more or less said, it's you got to hit and run. You got to go there and then you got to move somewhere else because they put it on right away. So, even having somebody there, unless they're there the whole time, it's only going to work for the first 3 or 4 people who come through, and then somebody's going to put it onto Waze. So that's how come when we have an officer there, they may not be there for a long time because people are just going to see it online anyway.
It's a battle of technology. And to that point, I mean, police officers are moving these things around because people get used to it.
Mhm.
So they respond to it, or then they ignore it, and so they'll move it around. This is a tough issue. This is a real tough issue.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, so of course, one of the first things I did when I moved to Somers, which was just under a year ago, is join the parents' Facebook group because you get a lot of insight on all things local. I can tell you that 2 weeks ago, another parent posted that her daughter waiting for a school bus almost got hit by a car because they live on Mayapack. And I, immediately thought to myself, oh, that just terrible. And then just last week, another parent posted how they witnessed an accident right before them on Mayapack, and it was clearly due to speeding. And I don't think he was complaining about speeding. He was more citing the fact that things can change in an instant, and that's because people are just driving so fast. So I just, I like to advocate for more people to come and voice their opinions on it, and hopefully get some changes in place.
Well,
I think the biggest thing is just, for me at least, was just that I was happy when I saw the speed sign, then saw that it wasn't quite working very well. Unless you're driving 30 or under, it doesn't go on fast enough for you to even see you're speeding. That, and it was on an upward slope. So those were 2 things. But then the fact that it got taken away was kind of like, okay, well, now what? Like, how does that help us long term?
And it's like the supervisor said, we have, ordered a speed table. And one of the big problems is that he's 100% right. People, you're either going 118 or Mayapack Avenue to get from Route 6 to 35. And the other side is you have a lot of newer drivers who are racing to go to Bosse's in the morning, or racing home from BOCES at night. And, you know, those are a lot of the speeders also. So, you know, we are taking it seriously. You know, it's a tough spot for, you know, there are places that have put speed bumps in and then they had to take them right out because as the supervisor said, they become a liability issue for the town.
Somebody hits a speed bump at an excessive speed, they're gonna be in your yard.
Yeah.
You know, that's the.
But we've talked about speed humps, we've talked about tables, you know, and we're still looking at it. The first step, and the supervisor initiated it, was let's get sort of an analysis of it. And what Tony said is 100% right. If you have a working table there, a working speed sign, everybody's going to slow down. So you're not going to get an accurate reading of how fast people are going. If you have one that's not on, they won't realize that it's tracking them and they'll go their normal speed. If the sign was there, the information would have come back, hey, look at this, everybody's going 30 miles an hour. Because the minute they see the sign and it lighting up, they're slowing down.
But Lisa, where you're living, I was out there, right? So you're coming up that hill, right? You're coming up that hill, it's a blind spot. Even if you're doing 35 and you're coming around that corner very quickly, it's dangerous.
At least if you're going 35, well, again, you know, I left this morning to go to the dentist in York. Down the window, turned off.
I get
the
it.
TV, all the way to right, but it's always, when I get to hear that car, they're coming so fast that it doesn't even give me time to like hear how fast they're approaching. It's a matter of just like Jennifer said, about pulling out and then.
Do we have any,
You
are there
know,
any
this is,
signs over there like blind curve or blind
Hidden driveway.
Blind drive.
blind drive? It is,
Yeah, but
okay.
you know what?
People don't
Now,
pay attention.
Until I lived here, I mean, think about it. How many times do you drive along? and say, "Oh,
is where I live across from Reese Park on Primrose. If people go too fast, there is one of those signs there. I don't think anyone even looks at it.
yeah."
And it becomes part of the scenery, which is what they're saying about the speed signs and everything. It becomes part of the scenery. That's the problem. But, you know, we can talk about all the reasons why nothing can be done. And maybe nothing can be done, but we can't ever try to do nothing. And I think that's the point you're saying. And we agree with you on that. Now, one of the things that someone had mentioned that was interesting, would a rumble strip where it's not quite a speed hump, or maybe on the side of the road for those who are going too far on the side, would that slow things down? I think if we look at the research of what actually works, because, you know, you're kind of guessing at this and you look at a small sampling, say, is that representative of either people going too fast or people going too slow? You know, so it's going to be an ongoing thing. And to say anything otherwise probably would not be true, but I understand your position. I think we all do. And they go too fast on my street, and probably everybody else's street.
Yeah.
The supervisor lives on Lovell, they probably go too fast on Lovell, right? Yeah.
And I think the thing is.
Hi, ma'am, if you're gonna have to get up to
Oh,
them.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so.
I don't think it's the speed. I mean, obviously, we don't like people speeding, but for us, it's the danger of pulling out of our road. It's not, you know, it's annoying that people are going too fast, but it's, oh my God, I'm gonna pull out. And I might be hit broadsided
Yeah.
and, you know, killed or severely hurt. But let me just, Joe, isn't there, on the other side of Mayapack, isn't there a road that has some permanent speed camera? Yeah, Pine Bridges. No, I think they're that's part of Yorktown.
But they have
But-
cameras?
It's,
No,
does somebody
Oh.
want to come up and, somebody come up and.
Yeah, we were told that you're not allowed to have cameras, so.
well, now that, first of all, Jennifer, thank you for your comment. Second of all, you know, believe me, after 8 years of trying to deal with speeding in the town of Somers, I've really come to the conclusion that it's a very difficult thing. You can take immediate measures, police enforcement, having a cop car there, that's going to slow cars down. Putting speed signs that tell people what their speed is. And then as soon as you see that sign, people might slow down, then speed up later on. But when I was very serious when I said, let's look into a camera that could take a picture of someone speeding like they have in New York City. And our town attorney, Roland Baroni, was asked, we'll look into that. What, can the town of Somers invest in that type of technology? To me, that is the most effective way of having an impact on people at speed. I mean, that camera goes like this. If 15 people get a speeding ticket, that word is going to get out. Then maybe you move the camera somewhere else. They never know where that camera is. Or you buy dummy cameras and put them up on our major thoroughfares. That is a technique that I think would work. The fact that our learned attorney here is telling us, we're not eligible for that. Yeah, I don't think we should be totally dissuaded by that. I think we can, even petition our elected officials. Why can't Somers, New York, have those speed cameras that take pictures of not only the car, but a license plate?
Yeah, they just happen to have different laws for large cities and small towns, and they're not always the same. And in this case, they don't allow speed cameras that issue tickets in towns such as Somers. That doesn't mean you can't have the deterrent if you choose to do that, but you can't have it issue an actual summons.
You could send out a picture of the speed to the registrant of the vehicle, but you can't then impose a penalty on that.
Right.
Would that have an effect?
So I'm going to go a step further. If we talk to our senator and our
That's the
assemblyman
best idea.
and petition them, we want the same right as the cities
Yeah.
have. What's the difference between speeding in New York City and speeding in
I don't know.
Somers?
Good question.
Here it's even more dangerous.
If
because
the
you have winding roads.
technology,
Right.
if the technology is the same, the principle would seem to be the same.
Hey, they can give me a ticket if I run a toll. That's allowed, but I can't do it if somebody, not that I run tolls, but far from it, but you can't do it for speeding. It makes no sense. So I think that is a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening, Joe O'Brien, 18 Woodcrest Terrace. Thanks for listening to us tonight. I won't belabor all the points being raised. I'll maybe just focus on what was briefly raised about the signs, slow, hidden drive. I think maybe the location of the current sign or an addition of another sign. Right now, as you're going from 6 to, or Route 35 toward Route 6, as you pass Lakeview Terrace, 10 yards up, you'll see the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, and maybe 5 yards after that is the slow hidden drive sign, which sort of brownish in color. Maybe, it does get lost in the background. The location of that sign, though, is like right at the apex of the hill. And even if a driver or a motorist sees it, by the time they do, they're already on the downwards. Turning out of Mayapack is right there. So
Right.
maybe a simple solution to start with would be to at least put another slow danger sign, maybe just after the Lakeview Terrace street sign, just to get an extra 10, 15, 20 yards. And then leave the hidden drive sign
You know
where
what
it
I've seen in
is.
other areas though, and I think somebody said this, or maybe Rick did, and I'm thinking, because I know it's on a street in Yorktown that I see, there's a flashing sign. There's a sign that has, red light, and when you see a flashing sign,
Something more noticeable.
you tend to slow down. If you see is it school crossing, is it this, is it that? So that, and usually you can make them now, I think, with solar. So they, you don't even have to run electric them. We can run that by our highway department possibly.
Right.
But I know I've seen those in different areas, and you tend to slow down when you see it, because if it's flashing, obviously there's something up there.
Correct.
So that might be a good avenue to go.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Oh, that's, yeah, true.
Olga Cantor, 22 Woodcrest Terrace. I thought that just occurred. Mayapack Avenue is not the same all along between 35 and 6. It's a very different road where we are compared to what it becomes down by the farm. So maybe there's a possibility of lowering the speed limit to maybe 25 with the flashing light. We're saying that there is a windy, difficult or dangerous road, even just for that piece of a windy road. And then when it becomes straight down, then make it 30.
You know what about that though? The only thing I think about that, I think the people who are speeding they do it every day. I think so they know the road. So I don't, if it's 25 or 30, I think putting up a flashing sign might slow them down because then it'll make them aware that there's something up ahead that, you know, maybe I don't even think about when I'm driving. But if there's a flashing sign that says, what, you know, a blind curve or blind drive or something like that, that might bring them in. But my guess is that the person who you see speeding on that, it's the same it's the same people you see every day.
But when you are on 35 and you're approaching the trail, the trail walkway, there's a 25 flash, and you would slow down no matter what. You would normally, it would be a normal reaction for any driver, I believe, to slow down. They have lights, they have signs, they have flashing lights for that crossing of the trailway,
Mhm.
right? So in my mind, when you see a sign, dangerous road, slow down for this particular piece of the road for 25, not the 30 that is everywhere, that where the roads are straight.
Yeah, the town speed limit.
But on both sides of that area where we are, where it's hilly and windy, if on both sides you had a flashing light of 25 for that piece, people would actually take an attention.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't
believe.
I'm not gonna throw cold water on that. I mean, it's true, but if somebody's coming and you're not familiar with the road, you're gonna yield that sign. But if you're going up and down that road all the time and then you feel you can handle it, even though that sign's there, you still, they don't look at it
Well,
anymore.
but that's
And then
true
you fly- you
to
fly
anything
through.
you do.
Well, that's what we're
It's-
experiencing though.
But I think a flashing light might, because it just might knock somebody into saying it's a flashing light, you know, who knows, somebody might be pulling out because it's flashing. I think it just makes somebody think about it a little bit more. So I'd be interested in trying that.
I mean, I would
The
even,
truth be known, you can't go as a town. The lowest speed limit is 30 miles.
Yeah, that's
an
what I
hour.
thought. It's a town
Unless
speed
it's
limit.
a school zone.
Yeah.
When you can go down to 25,
right.
but you can't just go down to
Arbitrarily, right.
25 unilaterally.
That's what I thought.
Roland, we're kind of, speculating, all of us, what would work, not work based on personal experience, intuition. Somewhere in the state government, though, there has to be research that's done. When you want to know if something works, you can find people who've done research on it. Where in the state government do you think maybe they've done that on the most effective way of managing speed? Because as long as Tom and I've been here 14 years, and it's 14 years of people complaining about speed, and for 14 years on my road, people have been going, and
Well, I think the way it works.
It's
is
ongoing.
Whatever information the state offers makes its way to the county commissioner of transportation.
yeah,
And the police chief and the highway superintendent certainly can avail themselves of the services of the county and find out what the latest techniques are that
so which county office is that?
the commissioner of transportation.
Okay, well, there's at least a source.
Well,
I mean, as a layman, the most effective speed situation is Cherry Street. They seem to have gotten that under control with a combination of those
speed tables.
speed tables and
Stop
signs.
signs.
Signs
and
that say
bi-
you're
and-
speeding, flashing.
And
signs.
summonses,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's in a
it's-
school
it's-
district there, right?
Pardon me?
Is that by a school?
No,
No,
No, okay.
No.
It's
don't
within a
think so.
block of Catona Elementary School.
I mean, the thing is that we have highway people, police people, we have access to all these experts that we've referred out to, and they come back with, the same answers.
public comment, what's up, sir?
Yes, the name is George Santiago, 21 Woodcrest. I'd like to comment is that, yes, everyone here, and I have to agree with the young lady, my neighbors are 13, where the school bus and the passenger car almost hits a young kid. And then I'm saying to myself, I said, wait a minute, we have gone through these changes in this town for a long time. But we must do something with the speeding on Woodcrest Terrace. Putting our signs, if you want to investigate, to have them in the right location, where at the crest of a hill, you see that car speeding down. There's one problem the other day, cars moving, school buses moving. The next thing you know, almost an accident. So when I'm looking at right at that corner, I'm saying, wait a minute, we got kids here. Now, I've seen school buses flying up that hill, and not to criticize bus drivers, but I'm a retired teacher. And I myself, the first thing is look out for the kids. when you're looking at a car and you're looking at school buses, especially at 2:30, 3 o'clock when things are going and these people want to go home, I understand that. But there must be, something must be done at a point of where we know there are problems because you're hearing it from the community, where those locations are at. These are the targets that we should be focusing on, because where we have trouble, you're going to find it. And that is where you'll see cars speeding up, buses are moving, looking at where children are at, going uphill, downhill, the crest of the hills. This is what we need to focus on. So if we're going to do anything about speeding on Mayapack Avenue, we have to look at where the community has its kids and where the dangers are at on that road.
And
Thank
that's what-
you.
Thank you. That's what the supervisor was asking for. So. that
Yeah.
was-
Thank you very much and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank all the speakers so far for commenting.
Just to add to what's already been said, Marge Rodkin from 24 Woodcrest Terrace is, I feel that you're getting the emphasis that our issue is a little different than speeding in many places because of the visibility issue of the street. And my hope is that you keep us in the forefront in terms of making changes because of that, for that location. I am the person who mentioned to Lee, maybe a flashing yellow light that doesn't change. It just gets people aware to slow down, that there is an intersection coming, because they would see the flashing light when they're approaching Lakeview or when they're coming down from Arden. And I think we automatically lift our foot off the gas when we see a flashing light.
I agree.
So if it was possible to be a regular overhanging, permanent yellow, 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 that would be, I think, the optimal. And in lieu of that, if there could be signs on both sides, facing both ways, flash, 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 slow, that would also, I think, do it. So thank you for your time and for understanding. Our concern is really that we want to avoid anything and make it a non-issue in the long run.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, this is certainly a public safety issue. Our one and only, our main job is public safety. You know, we took an oath to uphold our laws and regulations in this town. And to do that, hopefully you have an awareness that your issue has not fallen on deaf ears. You know, we had the police chief here. We will continue to have him come in and give us updates. And I do want you to I want to encourage you, maybe we get a meeting together over at Van Tassel House in the community room over there with the police chief and the highway superintendent. And we talk about flashing lights, permanent lights, you know, they maybe relocation of some of the signs. But, you know, I've heard a lot of good suggestions here, and I'm still not giving up on the speed cameras issuing tickets.
Yeah, no, that's it.
That's our job. We'll start lobbying or,
That'll just take a little while, just.
but
that's how it
no,
works.
we hear you.
So Rick, just at that meeting, I would also invite the transportation director of the school, one of the folks that manage the bus stops.
Yeah.
Because part of that, you know, could be where the buses are stopping. I mean, I know they go through safety protocols and I'm not diminishing what they do, but that's part of it as well. You know, if they're stopping in areas that turn out to be excessively or proven to be excessively
Move it.
issues, move it.
All I want to say is, again, thank you for listening to us. And if you guys want to set up a special meeting, we would love, I'm sure the majority of us will come, maybe even the rest of the neighborhood. And does anybody else in the neighborhood want to come up and speak? Right. But again, I wanted to thank you for your time and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
I know you said you wanted to look into other things that you can do. And it just made me think, I know that when I drive through Bedford, through their little town square, there are major signs over there that say strictly enforced speed limit. There's multiple signs as you come into the town square. Not that we are a town square area, but Bedford is not very far from here. So I'm sure that there are other towns in the area that are doing something about this. I don't know who we have to petition to make those changes, if it is a legal issue to do those things, but if we could learn more about that perhaps, and. you
It's
know,
a
I'm
town
sure it
road,
would
so
be-
No
signs
signs we
and
can
those
put up.
things are good, but we can do that.
Putting up no signs are okay. You're not changing the speed limit. Just saying to people, whatever.
You drive like
Slow down.
Like your child lives here.
Yeah, any of those signs, the town can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's why I really want you guys to connect with our police chief.
Okay.
No,
And our highway department.
and the police chief will get the highway department involved, but do, you have taken the initiative coming in here, talking to us. I will certainly talk to the chief. But, getting an email requesting a meeting where we can discuss these different things, suggestions, that you made. We'd like to follow up on those.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Thank you all for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else here for public comment?
Everybody. On any other topic?
Is anybody on Zoom?
And
Okay.
Nobody is on the phone.
Any text?
Nope.
Okay, so hearing and seeing no one else for public comment, I'm going to make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
And as the gentleman said, have a very nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy
Thanks for
Thanksgiving.
coming.
Of course.
No,
Thank you for
More
your
importantly, for
service.
yours.
Okay, the next agenda item, Patty, department reports.
I report to the town clerk, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, plumbing, Bureau of Fire Prevention, Parks and Recreation, Planning and Engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Thank you. So moving on to the town board agenda, I'm going to shuffle things up a little bit. We have with us this evening, John Dulligan from Altice. And like to have him come up and begin a presentation.
Good evening.
You're gonna want to tilt the
Thank you.
microphone up.
You can
Yeah.
bring that up.
Good evening. Thank you to Supervisor Morrissey and the board for having me here tonight to say a few words about Altice, and sort of what I want to speak about tonight is some of the hurdles and challenges we faced in the beginning of the pandemic. Talk about, again, sort of Superstorm Isis, what was learned there, lessons learned there, what came out of that. I'll talk a little bit about the settlement with the New York State Public Service Commission, and then sort of going forward with our fiber to the home network, what's happening on that front and the benefits and enhancements that will come from that to the residents of Somers. So first, to talk about some of the challenges we faced early on. Before the pandemic, the company Altice planned for 20% growth in broadband year over year. So a calendar year, we would prepare and invest for that sort of growth in the network. Once the pandemic hit, let's call it the first 2 months of the pandemic, so May and April, broadband usage jumped 85%. So with that came challenges, right, of how do we build capacity quickly? How do we, what we did here in Somers, we did a lot of places, we had to look at the network. We had to split nodes, which just essentially is a node, is a neighborhood device that there's typically 300 people on the node. You split it in half, creates more capacity, right? There's less people on, or less residents or customers on those nodes. And then we add upstream, downstream channels, which again, creates more capacity. Some of the challenge in that also was that from a resource perspective, the industry, what I learned is the industry only has one vendor that we all use, meaning Cox, Charter, Spectrum, Comcast, we all sort of use the same vendors. So when we went to them to find equipment, there was a supply issue. And not only that, but we also had to file with the FCC. So, and they had also their own challenges, right, with processing licenses that have to happen when you add upstream, downstream channels. So there was a whole host of things we were trying to deal and grapple with. from the network standpoint. But we did make investment in our existing HFC network, which is HFC stands for Hybrid Fiber Coax, which essentially means our existing plant. The backbone is fiber. And when you get to the neighborhood level, it goes to electrical. So it goes to coax. So fiber is light and then it gets transferred to electrical into the neighborhood and into the customer homes. So we had to invest in that, right, as we were trying to deal with the capacity issue. And then came and let me back up. So then there was also operational challenges with our call center, right? So we had to close a couple call centers in New York because outbreak of COVID. We had to transition care agents to the home and try to set up terminals and that sort of thing so they could actually do their job. So what we did was we shifted a lot overseas for that period just because we had to obviously answer the phones. So that was a learning curve for us and trying to figure out how we can manage all of that. And then came Superstorm Isaias, which exasperated all those challenges I just mentioned. And through that, as you may well know, we had the Public Service Commission, the New York Public Service Commission investigated utility companies in the area. It was a lengthy sort of investigation. A lot of us, including myself, testified on behalf of the company and sort of our best practices and what we had to do during that time. And fast forward to March of this year, the settlement was agreed upon. And for Altice, I can't speak to the other utilities, but Altice agreed to, or we settled on $72 million, around approximately $72 million we have to invest in care, in network enhancement, and hiring personnel for mainly this revolves around storm, but it also applies to blue sky days because these are real things that are going to happen. They're going to impact day-to-day operations as well. It's not just.
So John, let me ask you,
Yep.
the 72 million investment that the PFC directed you to do, that was strictly for Altice?
Yes, that was Altice only. Yeah.
And you
Wow.
were not able to put that in the rate base, right?
Right.
No, that's right. We cannot.
Okay.
And that
that's-
72 million is split over how large a territory that LT service?
So that's over our tri-state, or well, excuse me, that's New York State. So that's just New York State. So that would be the city and north of the city. So we're talking Rockland, Orange, Westchester, Dutchess. So all the counties where we go as north as Dutchess.
Is that
So
a
the
lot of money? It doesn't sound
Yeah.
like a lot of money with all the miles that you cover.
Well, yeah, I mean, 72 million. Yeah, it is. It will make an impact and it already has, right? So we have measurable goals we have to hit. So it's not just you have to hit 72 million. This is what you have to do with that 72 million. And there's timetables for hitting certain benchmarks. Some of which I can speak to that we've already
Please.
hit or about to. So let me just jump to that piece here. So some of the, and I'll just highlight some of the major ones because there's a few, but what I already mentioned, improving planning and employee training. So that's directly with care agents and technicians because we realized there was a lot of repeat visits with tech roles. Techs needed to have better training. So a lot of that money, and I don't have pinpoint how much dollars is allocated to each one of these milestones, but I can tell you that that's a major milestone. As I mentioned before, in hiring new personnel for New York State specifically, it was a milestone we have to meet, and we continue to meet these. The timeline is such that I believe we have 3 years total. Some come sooner than others, but the total length of time is 3 years to hit all of these. Generators, something we've heard a lot about. We have to purchase more generators, and that goes to the fiber build out as well. Like our new upgraded plant will also be more resilient. That's sort of secondary to this, but I just want to mention that aside from what we have to do to buy more generators to deploy them in New York, specifically, we also are making investments in the new network.
Did they give
which
you
is-
standards, buy more generators to achieve outages within a certain period,
Not that I'm aware of. No, I think it's just you need to have more on hand. Because what the policy, the practice was before was we have generators and we move them around where the need is, right? So in the tri-state area. So there could be, if Northern New Jersey has an issue, we deploy generators there. If Connecticut has an issue, we deploy them there. And the goal here is to have them, have enough for New York, not so they shift around as the need requires.
okay.
In communication with government officials was a big one too. We have to over communicate. We have to communicate more specifically how each town, we learned that through Isaias, right? How many customers are impacted by a municipality. I think what we historically done before that was we really put it on a countywide basis. We weren't very, sort of dialed in on reporting on a town by town basis, which is something we're going to be doing going forward. We already have been doing that. Also better practice with other utilities and OEMs, just better coordination, which I can say we've certainly done already. I've been on a number of calls where we've coordinated with all the power companies in New York, and not just, we already had touch base quarterly blue sky kind of tabletop exercises. Now we have more regular contacts, make sure we shore up our contacts, make sure our policies and our procedures are in line with what theirs are. So there's no holes and there's no gaps and communication when the event hits. Also, we have something that we're about to launch any day now, which is an outage website for customers so they can see and have real-time ETRs. So this website is going, like I said, the benchmark was to hit that by the first quarter of 2022, but we're going to launch that, should be any day now. And we will make a big, I'll let everyone know when it is launched, and we'll make a, public splash about it. But it's also, so the main functionality is folks can go there, they can see their outage, and they can see when there's clusters of outage or their own outage, and they can see in real time how that's happening. And a lot of that is going to be input from our technicians in the field. So it's not just our NOC, because we have our network operations center, which has tools to see remotely how the network is operating, but we also supplement that with technicians in the field that have iPads that can report an outage real time. So that gets uploaded into this.
So that'll give you like ETRs,
Yes, for
estimated time
estimate time.
restoration.
Yep, estimated time restoration, and it will be coordinated with utilities. So it won't be, just our best guess of when we are going, but we're also coordinating with utilities. And this is,
Unless you have a generator connected to it, you need electric.
and this is a work in progress. So I say that because it's going to be launched and we're going to perfect it. It's not, it's not going to be, when we launch it, not everyone is going to be satisfied, but I think when it launches, we're going to continue to improve it and make sure it's a tool that's actually useful to folks.
So when a cable goes out, you don't know, you can't tell at my house whether it's on or off unless I call you, or someone reports, or your technician reports, wires down between this street and this street, everybody's out.
Or we can tell remotely, but the issue with that is it usually is more, not just an individual home, it's more cluster based, right? So it's, if there's a cluster of outage, we can see that remotely. If it's someone, Mr. Jones's house out, that won't be triggered as quickly.
And then, but in that case, so you do know when there's a whole neighborhood out.
Yes.
Then you would know when it goes back on.
Right. That's right.
Then why is it that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that if I'm going to get a credit, don't I have to call and notify you? If you know when it goes out and you know when it goes on, why wouldn't that be an automatic that the consumer doesn't have to call and tell you? And you're going to be having perhaps thousands of calls. Doesn't it seem more efficient to simply apply the knowledge that you already have?
Yeah, but it's also good to get customer confirmation, meaning generally, yes, we know, but also there's times where we miss folks, right? So it's not like we would get a large majority. And we did do that with ESAs. We proactively issued credits, but we also heard, and I heard, you missed me, or I didn't get it, because it's it's a system that's automated, but it has to be as effective as it can be, supplemented by customers.
So are the credits applied automatically, or only if the customer calls you?
Only if they call, unless the company makes a decision unilaterally to apply them if it's a large outage.
Does that seem fair?
I mean,
your job isn't to determine that. You're in a
Right.
governmental affair. But I mean, there's a lot of things about your company where I go, really? I mean, it's like they don't care about the consumer, it seems to me. I mean, that's just a small example.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't expect an answer from you.
No,
I'm
I
just
hear your
saying,
point. Yeah.
that doesn't seem right to me.
Well, what's
I hear
the
you.
credit policy?
So the credit policy in New York is if there's an outage for, I think it's prorated. So is it 4? I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 hours. It's 3 or 4 hours, and then you're prorated for that day in New York State. So they vary by, for other states, but in New York, that's the,
For the all
but it's only
services or
for,
only
and
the
I'll
cable?
clarify, sorry, it's only for video, because broadband and voice, broadband is unregulated. So during ESAs, again, we gave credits for all services, but as far as what's regulated, it's only video credit that's required.
So that's the policy.
Yes, yep.
Credit for the basic service, or just whatever
All
service you
service, yeah,
have?
whatever service you have.
So my neighbor and I may have different services and get different credits.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
So if that's the policy currently, how do we fix it? If you were able to do it for SIEs, you're able to do it. Why wouldn't it be done continually?
Well, that's not a decision that I hear your point, and I can ask why it wouldn't be that way, but I think, that's a question that's been raised, not just by you, but by also others that, I go to ask that same question. So I can certainly raise that and see what kind of response I can get and come back to the board. Because that's not something I can answer tonight, but I hear your point.
We brought that up at the Public Service Commission and some of the things that we had talked about. All this stuff came back like you just articulated it. You need the Public Service Commission behind you, and they're only going to credit what they're regulated to do so, unless they make a business decision to do so.
Right, yeah, not necessarily. I mean,
And so-
the regulator can force them to do it, or you can update your policy.
Right.
One other thing I'll mention that we're doing also on the customer care side is, as I mentioned before, we had shut down some call centers, put some folks, employed some offshore help for the call center. So now we're bringing that back to the States. So we are slowly increasing our percentage of call center folks here in the States. So that's something we're actively doing. As again, I said, more training and a big focus on with customer care agents, and also a big focus on timely tech arrivals. So the quality of the techs as well. So there's not repeat visits, because we did notice that was looking at trends. There were a number of folks who had, a tech go out and then they had to call again, and because that tech wasn't qualified to address the issue, and we had to issue another tech. So that's another sort of training element that we're really focused on improving. So I'll pause. If there's any other questions about the settlement itself, or
Not necessarily the
fire
settlement,
department.
but I heard you earlier mention that you have measurable goals and benchmarks. And one of the goals, of course, is to be more resilient. Makes sense. What do those measurements look like over the last 12 months?
Well, I will say I don't have, what the measurements look like over the past 12 months, but I will say that, all that we've done with the investment side of the house in terms of care and in terms of adding techs, all that has been taking place and will continue to do that. So the network is performing much better than it was, let's call it last year or right after ISAISIS. We see that the network performance is greatly increased. We don't have, the call volumes have dropped across the board. So we see a lot of improvements in different areas.
Can you share those numbers with us?
Not tonight, no.
No, but as a
I
follow-up.
can ask. I don't know if that's public information, the trending and the
Yeah.
numbers are public. I
Because
don't
if
know
you
if I would
just
share
said
that.
we're doing better, that's a good story.
Right.
And we would want to get that story out. We just need to understand that story.
Right, but that's some of that. I don't know that we would share our trends, our specific metrics.
All
but
right,
can
well, I would
ask
go
for it.
back and ask that question
Sure.
though. And then also in terms of the dollar investment that you're making, I mean, that would say wonders to your commitment to do something at another level, right? So what have you been spending? What's your 5-year commitment to spend in this area?
Mhm.
And what do you hope it to look like at that point in time?
Okay.
Yeah, does Northern Westchester get 5% of the settlement, or does it, where are we on that? The other thing I just want to bring up, you did mention that there, I don't know if it was after Isaias or during the pandemic, you said the call centers were shut down.
Mhm.
And we became your public relations branch. So we'd be very interested in that benchmark. When are your call centers going to be up, staffed, trained? And basically, when can the town get out of the Altice public relations business?
Yep, and I have seen, because I receive all those escalations, so I'm aware of how many we get, and I think you're right, and you should not be like, that should not be the role, and as much as it has been. I certainly see the complaints going down a lot in terms of not just in Somers, but across the territory, which I cover, which is Greater Hudson Valley. So, but I will go back and try to quantify a little bit more and give some more data on that call center.
And as you go through this transition, I mean, I know we've done some of this, but points of contact are important. We have, points of contact to handle customer service issues, but when we're in emergencies, points of contact for highway departments and the like to, get people here and be able to communicate operationally, what's happening. And then, thirdly, points of contact to help us work on larger problems that we're experiencing. We may have, areas of town that has aging infrastructure. Okay. And I know in this area, we might be getting we're getting complaints about, service issues coming. How do you go, and how do we address that? You know what I mean? Like if we have a development over here, it's been there for 30 years and Altice is in there and it's all underground, but things are aging. We know that it needs to be refreshed some along the way. How do we sort of quantify that and understand how you're going to respond to that? And and I'm thinking, I'm not going to answer the question for you, but I think a part of it has to do with some of the new infrastructure that you're putting in here. But to be able to lay that out to the public would be helpful.
I think you're right. So the new infrastructure will certainly help, as you mentioned. I think it's also what we've done in other towns where there is specific issues in areas of the town as we go in and we sort of collect the customer information. And then we have a sort of a triage that includes our network operation people, other people that really look into it and do a 360 look at that area and say, what are we seeing here? Because if it's something where our network is failing consistently, we're going to see it. But if it's intermittent and it's, here and then it is sustained for a few months and it comes back, that's something that we could have a more.
So everything
succinct
looks
plan on.
spotty until you define it. So if I was to come to you and say, this area, analyze it for us.
Yep, we can do that. Yes.
And there's maybe 50, 100 homes in that area. And you can do that over a period of time and then come back with something.
Yep, that's certainly an approach that we can take. Yeah.
So how would we do that? Would we do that with you?
Through me, and then I create the working group that would come from the different disciplines to help, and then obviously you would be speaking with them and we'd all have sort of consistent calls with whoever the town appoints. I mean, we can have someone, if there's what we've done in other communities, if there's someone who's a point person for the community, we wouldn't have everyone, all the customers sort of join in but we would have a point person possibly from that, that cluster of folks who could represent them, or the town, someone from the town itself, or the task force that could come and.
What would you call an analysis like that? I mean, how do I convey that simply? Is that like a community analysis? Or-
A network analysis. I mean, we don't have to, I think that would
Community
suffice.
network analysis. Okay.
I mean,
So, John, you mentioned you're in the process, or you have fiber optics coming in, and then it sounds like you're dumbing it down to cable as it goes to the customer. Is there any plans to run the fiber optics right to the customer?
Yes. So that's, so we came to Somers and we secured 3 permits recently. So that's exactly what we're doing. We have it in the main corridor, as I mentioned. Now we're running it to the neighborhood level and right to the customer home. So as you might be familiar with the FiOS model, that goes to the NID, the outside network interface device. Ours goes directly into the house. It's very similar.
How do you sign up for that?
That won't be to Northern Westchester till the end of 2020 or 2022, excuse me.
Yeah, right.
So, but we have 3 permits in hand, and those permits are part of the network build out is we have remote cabinets. We're called remote optimal line terminals. They're cabinets that sit adjacent to poles and they power the network. So essentially the further you are from the head end, and it's a density requirement as well, that dictates how many rolts the cabinet, as we call the cabinet, or the community needs. So there are going to be 3 in Somers. What we secured was road opening permits. So we have the power company come and the cables go underneath into the cabinet, and it's just essentially a cabinet for power. But that will then allow us to then build the aerial and go into the node, do the new drops, and make sure the network is end-to-end fiber. And that with that, the customers will be getting 10 gigs to every house, which at this point is the fastest in the nation. I don't know about tomorrow, but as of today.
so when you talk about every house, and we're pretty rural, you're going to come into the business areas first, and how do you get to my house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it first.
I don't know what the
You're on the main
rollout.
road.
That's true. You should.
I don't know the specific rollout plan, but I know the way we do it is we saturate the town and then we don't light up certain sections first. We sort of try to make sure it's uniform across the town. So we don't hear, why does
Why
that
does
section of
they-
town have
yeah.
it? We don't. We try to make sure that the build out is such the best we can, because it's not always, a municipal build out. It's a network topology build out, but we try to follow that and that approach in terms of turning up a town as opposed to, the entire town as opposed to certain sections.
So the ask is, can you kind of put something together and meet with us and show us how this rolls out?
Yeah, yep, we could probably do that. I mean, we'll have to wait a couple months to make sure that we have a proper game plan, but yeah, I can certainly do that.
And is it fair to ask I mean, you said by the end of 2022, what's going to happen? Every home will have a fiber optic
Well,
option?
we'll have to incentivize them to come over because they'll be on existing plans, existing service. So the upgraded network, there'll be folks on both, right? It has to be priced to incentivize because obviously ideally we don't be running two networks and investing in two networks at the same time. So we're trying to invest. We can't have, migrate folks without their consent. So we have to have them incentivize them to come to the new network, new service. So we'll be a heavy push will be emphasized on making sure, as many folks move over as possible.
But are there areas of this town that do not currently have Altice coming to them that will be having at least the option of Altice? Because a lot of people ask for, can you give me another option?
Yeah, well, we pass every home in Somers. I don't know if FiOS does. I don't believe they do, but we do. So we will be passing every home, whether they choose to take it or not. Obviously, it's not up to us.
Well, you're passing every home except in Heritage Hills.
But not-
You serve
That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Heritage. Hills.
Comcast serves Heritage
Okay.
Hills.
Okay.
So how does that work?
4,700
No,
people up
we
there.
wouldn't go there because, I won't say we wouldn't, we can explore, but we don't typically overbuild. So if there's already a competitor there, we don't typically go and build another network when there's already one there. That's just not a practice that we typically get into, but it's not to say it hasn't happened. It just doesn't typically.
You have
That's
a
kind of a weakness.
captive audience there.
That's kind of a weakness of the system because it eliminates the competition. So now you kind of have, each one kind of has a monopoly. I know you can't comment on that, but that's how it sure looks like when there's no competition.
Anyway.
Well, we don't have a monopoly because there is effective competition in the area, which the FCC deemed this area effectively have effective competition back. And
He has it all.
With Direct TV.
you're right, satellite.
Yeah, but then there are people in that who can't get Direct TV, so there really isn't that. So theoretically, that's true, and that's a weakness of that 1996 law.
Right.
So, in my opinion,
Okay.
having studied it,
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Do you do this at a lot of towns? You're the government affairs specialist or whatever.
I do. I negotiate franchise agreements as well. So usually that's the context in which I come and
Yeah.
We'll see you soon on that.
You know what? Because they should pay you more money because Altice is not popular. That's my experience. So you're like above a used car salesman. No offense, used car salesman. So that you come into it. So I'm just saying. I'm just saying he's our guest and we like him. He's doing a great job. But I would just wonder on your company. So nice. It was here a couple of years ago, and the service wasn't so good. So they came in. We had a meeting. Tom was there. I was there. And they're telling us all the reasons why it had happened, why it couldn't get better. And at some points, well, if it can't get better, what are we all doing here? But then there was a change in attitude. I think they had a new CEO and whatever. And it has become more consumer friendly. It seems to be more reliable, more consumer friendly. That would be my advice. What you take back, is things like you can't go on your website and actually make a change that I would want to my service. More a la carte would be good, but even if I want to downgrade, so I spent a lot of money, I want to downgrade, can't. So I go over to one of your stores over in Peekskill. Here's what I want to do. You can't do it. So I'm just wondering, who do I go for help on these things? Because it does drive me nuts. And, I tend to be overly critical probably.
So when you say you can't downgrade, you're not allowed to change your service package?
Well, I can't do it on the internet. And when I go over to the store, they said, we can't do it here. So I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, I think calling or you can use our chat function on optimum.net. That one also works as well. But I would say calling is your best option.
Do I pay a fee when I downgrade?
No, I don't. There's no fee to downgrade. No, I mean, you
Sure.
can change your package.
Well, that'd be good.
You're under no contract, I see, because we don't.
No, I'm not. No,
You can't do that online?
Can you change it?
I couldn't do it online.
No, I mean, I have Direct TV and I can change it every other day.
I couldn't change it. Yeah.
Could you change it on TV with cable?
No, I
box?
tried that. That said, you can't do it here. Yeah, channel
Change it
902.
whenever I want.
So
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
didn't mean to
no.
digress into personal problems, but my feelings are strong.
Yes, you did.
As you might imagine.
Wait on hold.
Wait, I'm old.
Well,
Sorry.
I guess sort of tangent to that, we were out during election time, just speaking in front of people, particularly up at the senior centers up there. They were just talking about gee, like, hey, this is so expensive, it's gone up quite a bit. So 2 questions. One, the invoicing has gotten more expensive. I'll characterize it like that.
Mhm.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And then can we put together some sort of initiative to help these people find better options for themselves, maybe less expensive options? Going through, having it's a killer for us trying to text, and it doesn't work, I'm going to say, well. So the customer service side of this thing's always been a challenge, continues to be a challenge, but up there with the elderly, the frustration is very, very high.
Mhm.
I mean, you were with me, right? Speak to it.
Oh, well, they want to know about senior rates.
Mhm.
A lot of different businesses have a lower rate for seniors. And, they don't need the whole menu of every service but they would like an affordable, basic internet connection.
Mhm.
In a word,
They don't even know how to do that.
that's what we heard.
So I can give you information that you can send, we can circulate and to those folks, which is we have Optimum Advantage Internet, which essentially is 50 megabits for $15. And you have to the way to qualify for that is to be under SSI. So if you qualify for SSI, then you get that offer. And I have, information I can email you. We can circulate to community centers, wherever makes the most sense to kind of get the word out on that. Aside from that, I think an approach we could take to do an analysis on if there's, again, a number of customers where you can get their name, address, or the best way to contact, usually by phone. We can have our specialists call them and sort of go through the options and try to work with them to figure out what's a package, the best option they can have to help lower their phone or lower their services.
Yeah, I mean, that SSI level is very, very low. These are seniors who have retired on fixed incomes, not on SSI, but, paying more for food, gas, utilities, and they need some relief on their internet service. So I would just suggest you maybe look at kind of broadening that level for people above the SSI level.
Okay. And I will say we also participate in the Federal Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, which folks can get $50 if they are affected by COVID. If we say they've been, and this may not apply necessarily to seniors, but if they have some financial hardship because of COVID, they can call and qualify for a $50 credit off their bill. That's something we can also, give the town some information on.
Well,
so they can
this is
figure out.
maybe getting ahead of
Please-
this.
yeah,
but the
please do.
Broadband infrastructure bill that's just been passed.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't
That's
know
right.
what that is yet.
Yep.
But I'm assuming you guys are gonna know that
would
inside
think.
out. So-
Yeah, I think it's, there's 65 billion earmarked for broadband, but how that gets disseminated down to the states and the county level, I think we have yet to see how that's going to be played out.
Well, that's sort of on the agenda, I guess. Good. So I guess one of the actions is trying to get together, doing something for the seniors here.
The other's downgrading me.
What's that?
It's an individual action item. All right.
So John, did you
I'll
have,
send Brennan over to help you.
did you have any other thing on your agenda that you wanted to partake to the?
The other thing I want to mention, because I did see it's on the agenda, is Double Woods. I think that's something that's coming up, but I just want to mention that we've done some work on our front on Double Woods and sort of addressing those, just to give some numbers around that. In 2021, we've completed 191 transfers in the town of Somers. So that means transferring our wires one way, usually there's a pecking order of how we approach this. There's also a shared a website called Engines, which is all the utilities participate in, which tells you who's next to go. So if
Just
there is
learned about that. Yeah.
so if there's ever a poll or an area where you think needs to be attended or is an eyesore or you hear about it from your constituents, just let me know the address if you would, or whatever information you have on the poll number, whatever you tend to have, and I can send that to our field service team. They'll look on Engines and see who's next to go and be able to tell if it's us, if it's Verizon.
So it's
Power.
not always Altice, maybe Verizon first.
Right. Well, the pecking order is Power, Altice, and Verizon typically, right? There's other players that can attach to
Okay,
it.
so Verizon would be the ones that are responsible
Lowest.
for pulling pole
The
lines,
telco.
right?
Right. Yep. The last go. So, but there could be other attachers as well. So it's not always just the three of us. There could be a third
Yep.
party, someone else that we have to wait to attach or detach before we attach to the new pole. I was gonna say we have, and I'm just seeing here, we received quite a bit recently. I just was told that in November, there's a total of 108 transfers that are pending right now in the town that are with us, and 70 of the 108 were received in November. So we just got a whole sort of slew of them just this month. But we are working to address them, and I'll give the board an update on how we're progressing on that.
So that's good to hear. We've been working with NICEAG, their double wood folks, and they tell us, and they reference that website that we can go on and look at where things are. They're telling us there's over 200 double pole situations, in the town of Somers, some of which they're ready to notify you folks that you're next.
Yep.
But I took a picture of one of these situations where it's a double pole connected to another pole with rope. So if you're you,
Run out of tape.
I don't know if you can get it.
Can you see-
can be able to get that close.
Let's see, his technology. No. Not bad.
Just scary seeing Rich
Oh,
read that close.
Well, you just went dark. Yeah,
Oh, I did.
there you
Sorry.
go. You can see the rope there, holding up the two
I
balls.
think I know where it is.
All right.
Yeah, so that's an extreme example, but there are other
Oh, yes. I know where that
situations
one.
like
Yeah.
that out there.
Yeah, but I'll say, I think sometimes it's, tough to tell obviously who does that, because if someone calls us and says, hey, there's a low wire, and we dispatch someone, even though it may not be ours, and we can address it if it's in harm's way, it's a safety hazard, we're gonna do something to string it up, get it out of the way, so it's not a hazard, even though it's, and then we'll let the other utility know what the store, where the location is, what the problem is. But if we're dispatching, we'll do our best to kind of address it if it's a real hazard, even though it may not necessarily be our plan.
Okay.
What have you done increasing manpower, operational manpower, to respond to, trouble calls?
Yeah, I know that we,
Network, customer premise, that type of stuff.
I don't have specific counts, but I know that we are going away from the model. So before, early on, we went to the model of using a lot more subcontractors. Now we've gone away from that, hiring more techs that may have left the company. Now we're coming back, more seasons techs. That's been a big emphasis to try and get folks back that were with the company. So there's not the learning curve of the training, but also to hire more, and train more techs. So they're more, we don't rely as much on the subcontractors.
Having some experience with that, a couple of subcontractors came, and so I found out that they didn't actually work for Optimum, but they were a subcontractor. Some were fantastic. And then other guys like, have you done this before? Is this your first time? So, I mean, the difference was one guy was so good. He solved problems I didn't even know I had. And then another guy just couldn't solve any problem I had.
Right, yeah.
So
And I've heard
I could
that
see why you would
anecdotally.
want to do that, is what I'm saying.
Yep, and I've heard that anecdotally, quite a bit, the same stories, yeah.
Yeah.
Players.
One guy was super.
That's all I have.
Anything else on your agenda?
No, that's all.
Any gentlemen, any burning questions? I'm not asking you, Rich.
Yeah.
Well,
Good for now,
He's a wonderful
other
man.
than the follow-ups.
so John, I want to thank you for coming in. I know that, you've been dealing with Tony here and the Somers Telecommunications Task Force. And, we hope to continue that relationship, and the more information about your operation you can give us, we've given you some highlights, senior rates, call center. And if you can get back to us with, what can we expect to see change over the next, year
Mhm.
as far as your service goes.
I'd say website too.
Okay,
Are they going to give you more staff?
what's that?
Are you getting more staff?
No comment, yeah.
We'll advocate for you.
Rick, did you mention
Thank you.
just the metrics
You are
and
underpaid,
the
remember.
customer credits?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna do a glass of water while you do that.
Okay, thank you, John, once again for coming up. Since next on the agenda here is our double pole discussion. Now, this is an outgrowth of a concern that we've experienced in town, where the positive is that NICEAG has come through and replaced many poles with stronger, taller poles and infrastructure. However, what they've left behind are the smaller poles, which, as you've heard tonight, Altice is on it, and then Verizon, and there could be other utilities on that pole as well. So it's the last person that removes their wires is responsible for pulling the pole. We're dealing with NICEAG and their double wood folks section, who informed us the town of Somers has over 200 of these poles, many of which are dangerous. You know, they're held to the new pole with rope. This is not a good situation. We've had a situation, I think I've mentioned this a number of times, but on 118 over by the reservoir, where a garbage truck got hooked up in some wires, pulled them down because they were low hanging and were not addressed. So, it was good to hear that we can now call John regarding double wood poles, and we will certainly do that. We have a meeting that we're scheduling. Our next meeting with NICEAG is scheduled for November 30th. It'll probably be a Zoom to talk. We gave them a number. We asked them a number of questions, and they're going to report back to us. But I suffice it to say that I think we got on the map as far as NICEAG goes, and at least the process of getting these poles and the other utilities. Just as a quick rehash, we've learned from our town attorney that these poles exist, bless you, exist in a right-of-way, an easement that we gave up years and years ago. So to try to regulate or pass a law saying they have to move them would not be appropriate. But we are engaged now with NICEAG, and we hope to continue this relationship and get the double poles cleaned up and out of here. It's not going to be it's not going to happen overnight, but when it's done, we'll actually have one pole holding the utilities. So that's the update there. Okay, let me go back to item number 1. My least favorite thing to report on, the town of Somers COVID update. Unfortunately, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. Other countries are seeing surges. Parts of our country are seeing surges. Westchester is holding its own. Hospitalizations are down. We've had, can't remember when we had the last death in the county due to COVID. But in our town, we currently have 41 active COVID cases, and we had 3 new cases today. So we've been averaging 3 to 5 to 8 cases a day, for the last couple of months. So we're down into single digits, but that's not good enough. We need to be down at 0 new cases, and that active number will then come down. And it's impacting everything we do. Yeah. People have to still come in this townhouse wearing a mask. We were able to have a Veterans Day parade, but we took certain precautions even during that. We're going to have holiday celebrations. What we're going to curtail is having this room open for gingerbread houses and pictures with Santa. That's a high risk activity that, we're going to curtail. Last year, I think there were 6 of us that lit the Christmas tree. We're going to have a celebration, but it'll be outside, and we'll have Santa walking around. And if people want to take pictures with their children and Santa, they won't be sitting on his lap, but they can stand next to him and they'll take a picture. So, the
Rick,
town,
how low
yeah.
did we get? I can't remember. What was like,
0.
did we get to actually 0?
We had a day of 0.
All right.
We didn't stay there, but we had a 0.
It's coming back.
But there are parts of the state to the north that have higher
Yeah.
positivity rates than we do. Some sections of New York City are certainly the northern states of the United States are showing high rates. And in Europe, I mean, look, they just had a lockdown in Moscow, let alone, England has seen a surge. So, the virus, we just know the virus isn't gone. And we just hope it doesn't return around here, at least like last year. It's going to affect schools. It's going to affect.
They're still wearing masks.
Yeah, that's the law, and you have to in schools. Not everybody is vaccinated. Not every kid is vaccinated. It's going to affect high school sports, high school activities, high school classes, and hopefully never go to hybrid again with people staying home. But we all know what you got to do, and
Well, and I'm telling you, the town of Somers is doing what they have to do.
it seems like it.
You go into grocery stores, people are wearing masks.
Mhm.
I practice, my wife and I, if we go into a enclosed public space, we put on our masks.
Yeah, I know
So-
there's fewer and fewer people do it, and so it gets a little bit more awkward, but it's probably the smart thing to do.
Well, 3 new cases. Let's hope for 0 new cases
Please.
tomorrow.
Yeah, good.
Okay, next on the agenda is our budget. Okay, so we need to set the 2022 salaries for elected officials. And I will read the salaries into the record, Patty. Supervisor is set at 124,000. Town board members are set. Oh, okay. Excuse me. Superintendent of highways is at 123,719. Town board members are at 14,612. And then the town clerk's salary is set at 96,277. So that is reflected in our current budget, which is available online.
And in my office.
Excuse me?
And in my office.
And in the clerk's office. Do we need to move that
Were you,
or?
what, are you gonna have a discussion or?
Does that have to be adopted tonight, or is that in the?
Oh, yes, we have to.
It has to
adopt
go in
it.
the public notice, so you can do it all at once.
I would rather do it individually.
Yeah,
Okay, so motions on each?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion supervisor's salary be set at 124.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
no.
Okay, majority so ruled.
Bill, can you vote, please?
Oh,
Thank you. Just for the record.
You did.
you need a roll call on this? Okay.
No, but I didn't verbally hear him. and
Right.
I didn't want
Yeah.
him to come back.
Okay. I make a motion to set the superintendent of highway salary at 123,719.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor? Aye.
Yep.
So moved.
You want to do it one at a time?
No, it's unanimous. I make a motion to set the town board salary at $14,612.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, so we have one abstention and
Can you second it and abstain?
You can't see. If you second, it
couldn't
means
I?
you're in favor of
I can do
that.
that.
Why not?
You can?
Oh, yeah. You can do that.
I just was.
Oh, well, there's an interesting thing.
You're just moving it so it comes to a vote. It
Ah.
doesn't mean you're
Oh,
gonna
that's
vote
fair.
for it.
That's logical.
I'm just-
There you go. You're way ahead of us.
First one for me.
okay, so I have 4 ayes and 1 abstention. So moved. And then set the town clerk's salary at $96,277.
Aye.
I'm afraid to second that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll second and vote yes.
Okay, there you go.
Vote no.
Thank you, gentlemen. And once again, the tentative budget is available on the town's website and in the clerk's office. Next on the agenda is to adopt the tentative budget as our preliminary budget. Any further discussion on the tentative budget?
What's the percentage increase? Zero.
You tell me. You're
Yeah,
the,
let me
you're the
guess. You don't know
accountant.
that answer, huh?
Well, I'm just staging it. Zero increase.
Yeah.
It's for the
Oh,
second
property tax increase, yes. It's a zero.
property tax.
We were able to arrive at that through a lot of sharpening of pencils and, thanks to the town board and our director of finance, we're able to deliver a zero tax, property tax increase for 2022, as we have done for 2021. So I'll make a motion to adopt the tentative budget as our preliminary budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. And then I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the preliminary budget for December 9th, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to discuss your,
Is now the right time?
I would do it now so I can.
Okay.
it'll
I'd
go
just
in-
like to open it up for discussion, the start time of the December 9th meeting. Could that be done at 6 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock PM?
Rolling.
Start the meeting at 6 instead of
Can
7.
they change the meeting time for December 9th?
Legally, yes.
I just needed to know before, and I told them to ask you, but that's up to you guys. So
Yeah, I mean, these meetings are already at 7 o'clock. It's so early. I have trouble getting, I mean, if I can be guaranteed there's no executive session. Because.
I can't make any camera.
I know you can. I know you can.
No, I can. I can. I cannot have an executive session. We'll get it, our business done in executive session at the
And what's
The first meeting.
conflict?
Is there a scheduling conflict?
Yeah, there's a town event later that night.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'll have trouble at 6, but I'll do the best I can. If
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
that important.
I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to that.
I'll make an effort.
6 will be hard, but
I mean,
Okay, so that's 4 in favor, and Tom, that's gonna be difficult for you.
What's that?
I said we have 4 in favor of changing it to,
I mean, go
Six.
ahead. If I
I'm
can
okay.
get here,
I'm away. I get
You know,
it.
if I can, I will, but I got a job and sometimes it goes late. So 6 o'clock is tough sometimes. But I'll do my best.
I'll have to cut something short to get here, but I'll be here as soon as I can.
okay, so I mean, if there's a consensus, I'll make a motion that we'll hold our December 9th town board meeting at 6 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. So moved. Okay, plan. All right, the next item on our agenda is the proposed zoning code change. And this has to do with lot site coverage. And I know we had 2 members of our zoning board with us last meeting. You want to address this part on this before we? Okay,
Mr. Ebert, is an architect who appears in front of us who also came to express. Sorry about that. So
just introduce yourself.
Bart Lansky, 28 Ridgeway, Purdy's, New York, member of the zoning board. And the zoning board asked me to join you tonight to see if you had any questions that I could address.
Okay,
I thought the memo was very well done, explains it very well, and I'm fine with it.
all right, and a further comment I have, and hopefully this will make us all pretty confident that your recommendation was well placed, is I have a memo from the town planner, David Smith. He says in his email, among other things, that the proposed revisions are in keeping with good planning practices for residential development. So.
For anyone who's watching, could we just give a quick summary of it, of what you're looking for?
Yeah, of course, I think there was the code led itself to a couple of different interpretations. There was a chart which showed a principal building having a particular percentage depending on what area you're in, what size your lot is. And so those numbers were being interpreted to include what I would say would be site coverage, because we didn't have a separate line for site coverage. So in one way, we're clearing the chart up. And another way, our numbers, by providing a site coverage number, we're coming more in line with some of the other towns. And so we were having situations where applicants would come before us, and even some of the houses which have just been built in town, they weren't in conformance, and people had to go around the zoning code and go to the planning board and get an exception for something which is in line with the communities around us. So we reviewed the 5 adjoining communities, what they had, and we decided to be a little bit more conservative than they are in general, and recommended new numbers for building coverage and put in a number for site coverage, and then clarified some of the definitions. And once again, that just came from looking at the definitions in some of the adjoining towns. And we added a definition for structure. Structure is defined in most municipalities. We hadn't defined it in this town yet. So you can see the different definitions and the modest changes there. We leaned a little bit towards allowing pervious driveways to not count as an example, because that's good stormwater practices. And we took decks out from being a building as another example, because they're also pervious.
So just generally, there's a proportion of size of building and coverage with the size of property. And essentially this sort of adjusts what's included in the coverage area, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean,
that's fair
try
to
to
say.
simplify it. And so in the past, they were including decks and pervious surfaces. And now we said, look, we got to relax that a little bit to be in conformance with
In
general practices.
Yeah, in the past, since we didn't have a site coverage number, everything was kind of being pushed into building coverage.
Right, okay.
And so where we had building coverage of 6% in a 1 acre zone, that would give you 2,400 square feet. And we were interpreting it to include your house, your driveway, your deck, everything.
Right.
And if you have a 1 acre house, it's hard to do that. A 1 acre piece of land, it's hard to have everything within that. So now in 1 acre, you have 8%, which gives you 3,200 square feet for your building. And then you have, for site coverage, you have the additional. You can do your decks, your pool, and your driveway within the larger number, which is 20%. And so that gives you enough square footage without making it so we're Southern Westchester.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Good job by the zoning board.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing this
Yeah,
to our attention. And
So this is going to reduce more variances. It's going to make workflow easier for the for builders and the like, and residents.
It should help the building department because I'm sure they were bearing the brunt of confusion and complaints, and it should also help your average homeowner, and that most of these homes won't be non-conforming as of today. Whereas I think the majority of our stock, based upon the interpretation and the way the code was written, was non-conforming, and that's not something that I think the town ever intended.
So this really
No, it's certainly
simplifies-
clarified. It's so much more clear.
Yeah,
the way that
simplifies
you-
business.
You have it there.
Good. Simplifies business, but
Yeah.
very good.
do we need a motion for this, or just set a public hearing and then?
Schedule.
No, what I think you need to do is you have to ask the planner now to prepare the legislation,
Yeah.
the environmental assessment form, the letters of referral, because you have to refer it to both the local planning board for a recommendation and the county planning board.
Never
And then when-
simple, is it?
And then when you get those back, then you can set a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. We'll do it.
You want to come up and make? Yeah, I guess.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Bob Eberts. I live at 110 Pines Bridge Road. I'm a 40-year resident of town, and I've been an architect who's practiced in and around Somers and Westchester for 45 years. I have dealt with the town of Somers and their vague zoning ordinance for 40 years. Recently, there's been an interpretation that has changed from what has been done in the past. Now, often I've gone to the building inspectors or zoning officers over the years, and the interpretations have not been consistent. However, recently, we had an application, and I was told that now in the definition of a principal building, we're now including driveways and walks and decks and pools and sports courts and patios. And I don't think the authors of the zoning ordinance interpreted that or intended it that way. Now, I'm not criticizing the building inspector or the building department. Let me make that very clear. He followed through the code and he showed me very clearly how he got there. And it's tough to argue with, but that's because it's so vague. The ordinance is probably the worst I've ever seen. And I've worked in towns all over the country. One of the major issues with this ordinance is there's no definition for building. Now, what's a building? Well, we're talking about residential section of the code. So a building is a house, a garage. What about a deck? What about a carport? What about a pool? Is that a building? How about a walk? How about a driveway? How do we get a driveway into a definition of a building? And the answer is the code is so vague that the building inspector is logically making a conservative decision to say it's in there. Now this, I'm speaking tonight to be in favor of this proposal, though I'll tell you the truth, I have not read the fine detail of it. And I understand it's not available for me to review yet. But it's important, I think, that we realize that based on this interpretation, 90% of the houses in town are in violation of the zoning ordinance. Imagine what that's going to do to the ZBA. Just imagine how backed up that's going to get. So I think that this, as I understand it, we're separating out building coverage. And again, building is not defined yet, but if building is defined and site coverage is defined, I think it addresses that portion of the issue. But there's still more work to be done. I understand you're defining structure, is I think I just heard that, but the code talks about buildings. It doesn't talk about structure in the ordinance. It uses the word building. If you don't define building, you can't apply structure to it. You see, it's two different things, and neither one are defined right now. So I would urge you, please define building. Now, I checked many of the ordinances in and around Westchester and Putnam that I deal with all the time. I've got a collection of 50 or 60 in my office. Most of them define a building as a structure with a roof and walls or columns. So a house clearly is a building. A carport with a roof is a building. A covered porch is a building. A deck is not a building. A pool is not a building. A driveway certainly is not a building. But let's take that definition and use that for right now, because that seems to be pretty consistent throughout the area. Where does now a deck fall into the code? If it's not a building, what is it? What ordinance or what statute are you using to limit the location and size of a deck? Can it be built on the property line? Is there a setback for it? It's not an accessory building because it's not a building if you use that interpretation. You see what I'm saying? What about a pool? Can the pool be built on the property line? The driveway already goes to the property line, which I don't understand in fact how that's a principal building. If it goes to the front property line, you know, and you've got a front built principal building setback. You see some of the things that are not very clear in your code. And I'm asking you to please consider some of these items. I can tell you that over the years, I've got a range of interpretations. In Somers, if people ask me what the code is on something, I say, I don't know. I'll find out for you. I'll go meet with the current building inspector or the, you know, and I look around town and, you know, I've been told one thing and I know it's being applied differently someplace else. And that isn't, again, I'm not blaming the building department. You've got, it's the vagaries of the code that's the issue, not the building department.
Right. Well, I, for one, would much appreciate that when we get this drafted, that you take a look at it and we get your input as well as.
I just thought the draft which I created there for you on the podium.
Thank you.
And we specifically defined structure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go back up there.
There certainly was no idea that this would be held from anybody. Thankfully, the input of people in the trade who appear in front of the board is some of the most helpful input we can have.
Normally, it's on the agenda. For some reason, the supporting documents weren't there on the website today, so sorry.
I'm going to leave you my copy, but I think we share much of the same sentiments, but I think I've addressed about 80% of what this gentleman is talking about, or the zoning board has in its recommendation.
So let's get that 20%.
Well, the issue is we can keep going. And it's a pretty lengthy code. We saw a very specific instance of something we could change, which is really building coverage and site coverage, and defining what a structure is. We thought that those were simple and necessary steps. And when something, and that was a common theme in applicants who came before us, almost every area variance had to do with site coverage or building coverage, and how the building department was defining what was building coverage. Having a driveway in there made it impossible for someone to meet the code. So now that we've defined what those things are clear, we have new definitions, we've defined what a structure is, and we've changed the code to add site coverage, and we have percentage numbers in corresponding or congruent to our neighboring towns. We've come a long way. And I'm not saying we've addressed the whole code, but we've addressed one of the more complicated and difficult parts of it.
So, Bart, let me ask you this. Is this the time to take a look at the rest of the code? Not necessarily.
It's a fairly lengthy endeavor. And your code, parts of it, I think, are from the 80s. And typically, if you do a comprehensive plan, that's part of what you would do with that study. And you would look at where you want to direct your growth and so on and so forth.
Well, I mean, we do have a updated comprehensive plan, but apparently our zoning code doesn't reflect what the plan lays out for the town.
You would normally, that would be the second step after you update your comprehensive plan, would be to look through your code, because your code needs to be in conformance with your comprehensive plan for it to be considered legal.
Sure, we can have.
So that's something we should definitely put on our agenda going forward.
Well, I do review codes on a periodic basis as part of my practice, and this does seem to be one of the more outdated ones that I've come across. So I don't think it's a bad idea to have an expert look at the code vis-a-vis your updated comprehensive plan and with your planner and see what recommendations they have. This was something where the code was loose enough that the interpretations had changed over time, and a lack of consistency, and also the idea that most of our houses were now non-conforming, felt like it was imperative that I or the board try to come here and clear it up.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, this is the tip of the iceberg is what I'm hearing. And
Yes.
yeah, we need to follow up.
You can say yes, Mark.
Yeah, what the heck?
All right.
Can I just ask you,
We
your
need to do
proposed changes? Is that part of the memo?
That's, yeah, essentially the proposed changes are this memo, which was sent by the ZBA to the town board.
It's actually two memos.
Well, there was a memo that we did prior to we came here July 8th and we did a memo to introduce the subject. And then the board asked us for a recommendation. So then we did a second memo. And we did converse with the building department and the town planner to make sure that we.
I just want to make sure Dave has what he needs.
Yeah, I believe he does.
So before I let you go, one last question. How time sensitive is the defining structure and that the one piece that you're coming to us with? Or can we lump that into a zoning code review by a professional and do all the revisions at once?
It's only time sensitive if you're an applicant or if you're trying to redo your house or you want to,
So how frequent are those?
No, well, there's somebody in front of us every month with that issue. But out of I don't know how many ratables we have in town. Out of 15,000 ratables, if the majority of them are considered to be non-conforming today, there are people who are talking to their architects and choosing not to do projects and choosing not to improve their homes because they don't want to go through the process.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is let's get prepared referrals, get the draft ordinance out there. Dave can refer out. Once we get that back, we can set a public hearing specifically for this issue. So then we can make all the residents legal and take a hard look at the code
Well,
and revise.
maybe you want to also ask the planner, though, how long it would take him to do a expedited review of the code, because if you're also thinking of changes to the business historic district, you could do it all at once.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
This is, I mean, do you approach this like a zero base from bottoms up, or do you just try to identify the 5 major problem areas and try to fix them so you kind of improve workflow?
I think you talk to your professionals who deal with this code most, your building department, your planner, and the consultants who are regularly in and out of this code and other local codes, attorneys, architects, what have you. And then they should give you a list of the hot spots, and then having a professional or two read it and make
I
recommendations.
mean, you
This
could
sounds
weigh
like
in as well, though, right? I mean, they're in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the zoning board, the planning board.
And this sounds like a subcommittee of zoning, planning, building, and the town planner.
Yes.
Let's identify the areas, and then if we have to go out to a professional, then that's
I
that's.
mean,
what we'll do.
we also have the problem with the definition of family that's in the code.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you can begin to see a pattern. And what Bart's correct and the architect is correct, that the zoning code needs.
I
Needs to once over.
was told you were looking at hydrocarbons as well. There's in the overlay district for overlay water district here, it says that you can't bury hydrocarbons. So you can't bury oil tanks or propane tanks. And so Heritage Hills is doing their center now, and they came to us for a variance, and the question was, well, they're not allowed to do it. It really should be a use variance because it's not allowed in that district. But I think the intent of that code is that we don't have oil leaking into our water, and natural gas or propane is going to rise. It's still a climate issue, but it's not going to leak into the water and may not have been intended to be in that district.
Right, so I think your board granted a variance for 2 tanks. Now they're increasing it by
We
2
did-
more.
And we granted that, but it should have been a use variance, which is a hard test because it's prohibited. So that's something that the board might want to look at because we don't have natural gas here. And until the batteries get better for people having a reserve of energy, propane is the go-to, and it shouldn't necessarily be excluded in our water district.
Got it.
There'll be a number of those, but maybe you do want to form a committee with some people
I
and
mean, that's all great information and input. I mean, if we can just clarify things based on these issues that you're just kind of pointing out, you get 90% of it done, a large portion of it done.
Bart, just out of curiosity, when it was written, were propane tanks not used and therefore they're technically hydrocarbons, but they weren't thought of at that time because it wasn't in use?
well, I think it's people write. I mean, I write as an attorney, and I tend to take something I wrote in the past and I modify it, and somebody took another code and modified it, but that's likely what happened, and didn't really think to delve into it. And hydrocarbons is, molecular structure. It's not based upon, that's not why you would want to prohibit it, but I just think you can give everything a little bit more thought, and make it a little more nuanced is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks, Bart.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In answer to your question, can we address a part of this now? I think if you don't, you're going to have lawsuits on top of lawsuits with the town. I've already spoke with clients who are talking lawsuit because they've got very unusual interpretations. I think if you don't address this quickly and as thoroughly as possible, I think you're just going to start piling on. Now, I've currently got 5 clients in Somers. Every one of them has to come before the ZBA, or went with just one the other day. Every one of them has to, because of this interpretation. And again, I think it's an interpretation that did not exist a year ago. Houses being built today are now in not conformance with the code that's being applied. So I think it has to be addressed quickly. But if it's not addressed thoroughly in this section anyway, the words that you're using, if you don't have definitions for the words you're using and how to apply them, then you're just spinning your wheels. If you're not defining buildings and you're using the word principal building, you're wasting your time, in my opinion. If you're not defining what code to use decks and you're excluding decks from one section, well, where are you putting that into? In other words, I think this is a great first step, at least from what I've heard to date. I think it has to be developed a little bit further and passed very, very quickly.
So you're saying this, because we're just discussing the whole thing or part, you would say we should do what we're talking tonight, perhaps even further or more clarification. And then we can take the bigger issue as we go farther.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
That's what I'm saying. Pass this section with improvements as quickly as possible is my recommendation to you, because I'm afraid, as a Somers resident, I'm afraid what's going to happen. You're going to get a lot more people, and we're talking about traffic in here, on this issue. Now, before I go, and I know I've talked a while, and I apologize for that. There's one other thing that I'd ask the board to look at, and this is really a little bit of a separate issue, but it pertains to the zoning ordinance. I've noticed the proliferation of very, very large accessory buildings in town. I'm not quite sure how many of them get by the height restriction of the accessory building that's in the code, but I guess a creative designer can get around it. Many towns do restrict the total amount of accessory building. Lewisboro restricts it to 60%. I think restricting it closer to 1.5% of lot area, where on a quarter acre lot, you don't want a huge accessory building, but maybe on a 15 acre parcel, a 3,000 square foot accessory building is acceptable. So a sliding scale based on the zone or the lot size, I think makes sense. So I would ask you to look at that as well. I don't know if anyone agrees with me that there's been an enormous proliferation of accessory
But Bob,
buildings.
since you mentioned exactly what is a building, pillars or walls, and is that exactly what you're talking about in this case?
It comes right back to it again.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Again, what's a building? Is a sports court a building? Doesn't make sense. The driveway doesn't make sense, but anyway. Thank you for your time, and
Thanks,
I
Bob.
appreciate your service. I know you've been here for many years, most of you. Happy Thanksgiving, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Your input is appreciated. Thank you. Okay, which brings us to item number 6, which is request approval to purchase an add-on for Municity 5 to allow the current software to tie into the Town of Somers Laserfish software in the amount of $11,181, which is on a state bid, $7,350, which includes training per memo dated October 29th from Thomas Tuma, building inspector. Is that 7,000 in the 11,000 or?
It reads like that, and then the rest is training. That's how it reads. Yeah.
Which includes.
What does it say?
Yeah, I think it's included.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll certainly clarify it, and certainly no matter what the cost, it's needed over there. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the request for the add-on to Municity 5.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Item 7, authorize the supervisor to execute A, B, and C. A is order package acceptance agreement for the purchase of a new Konica printer copier in the amount of $8,000. Rental agreement for a new postage machine, auto, to be paid over a 6-month rental plan at $247.17 a month per memo dated 10/21 from Tammy Sava. These are all from Tammy. And then the joint application for the New York State DEC wetland permit for Hillside Drive improvements in Chenock per memo from Steve Wolfel, of Engineering Department. Okay, yeah, we're doing a stormwater retrofit at Hillside. So I'm going to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to execute those items, A through C. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Just do me a favor. Yeah, clarify that last one because I don't even see 11,181 in the supporting.
I thought I saw it. Did
I
you?
don't know if that's the sheet.
I see the 73 right there. That's the
Are you going?
73,000. That's a
Well, it's
73 added up.
so moved on item number 7.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
now let's go back to,
Yeah, no, just let's try and clarify because I just don't see, I see the 7,350 twice. I just don't see the 11,181. So anyway, I know you're going to look at it.
that's the,
But anyway, it's not, we passed it and we need it. I mean, that's the ultimate.
it's municipal, right?
Anyway, it's fine. I mean, we don't need to hold up for it. Because again, it is needed. I understand that. But I just wanted just a little bit more.
So you're gonna take the lower amount anyway.
Yeah, you questioned the 11,000,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I don't know if I
So
don't know if it's a typo or something, because there's a parenthesis in there that sort of,
Here's the.
you know, that's what I'm looking at.
oh, okay.
But there's just no.
You had them
mention.
both together, I believe.
So
So it's
it
inclusive.
looks like 11,000,
It's in-
7,000 from the state, and the rest of it is for training.
Correct.
That's how it's,
I don't see that, but that's all right. That's
how it
fine.
implies it's right there.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Problem. Okay, we are on to personnel, current vacancies on our Affordable Housing Board, Assessment Board of Review, Partners in Prevention, and upcoming vacancies on terms expiring in 2021, Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals. And acknowledge the resignation of Mr. Ron Carpenetto as a member on the Zoning Board of Appeals effective November 1st, 2021. And we certainly want to thank Ronnie for all his years of service
That's
to
a
the
lot.
town.
A lot of years.
Well,
Yeah, he was in the building department and came back and served on the zoning board for many years. So
I would just like to comment that, 24 years ago, a very young and
energetic.
Guy joined the zoning board. And Ronnie was on it with me. And he was always very helpful. Obviously, he was a building inspector here for years. He did a great job. He had so many years on there. So it is a loss that he's leaving, but we understand it and we just appreciate it. But that was way back when. And I have to say, it was one of the best boards I've ever been on. Everybody got along great. We used to, go out and socialize afterwards, and it was just a great group of people. And I can't believe it's almost 25 years ago, but it is.
Seriously.
So
Yeah.
Are you saying you want to go out and socialize with us?
I did not say that.
Oh, I was looking for
I knew he was
clarification.
gonna go there.
That's when he socialized, I guess.
That's when it's when he was social.
All right, so that brings us to our consensus agenda. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Any questions or concerns with those?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the consensus agenda, items 1 through 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Which brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. Our next meeting will be our work session, December 2nd. And which moves us now to announcements and fun facts.
We got to put that in the agenda. We got to put down, item number.
I don't know if that we want that read into the permanent record.
Announcements
Fun
and
facts.
fun facts are winding down. They're retiring with Rick Morrissey. I don't know if you heard. me.
I did hear you.
Wow. And by the way, there'll be no interruption during fun facts.
Yes.
Yeah,
When they're
Rich,
completed.
Rich, that is directed at you.
I have,
What?
I got a lot to announce here, so just hold your horses.
Okay.
Okay, so as I announced last month, Samaritan's Purse Operation Christmas Child is underway from November 15th to November 22nd. First Baptist Church on Highlands Avenue in Peaceville is collecting shoe boxes filled with treats for unfortunate children. You can also go online and have boxes pre-built for you and shipped on out. Keep America Beautiful, the townwide litter cleanup weekend is this weekend, Saturday, November 20th, and Sunday, November 21st, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Supplies will be provided here at the townhouse in the parking lot. There is a deposit for litter pickers and vest of $20. So if you would like those, you leave a $20 deposit. The third annual Somers Track and Field Booster Club Turkey Trot is Thanksgiving morning, November 25th. There's an 8 a.m. 5K, a 9 a.m. 1 mile fun run, or a virtual 5K option. You can register at www.runsignup.com. Registration ends on November 24th. Town of Somers Annual Hanukkah Celebration and menorah lighting is Sunday, November 28th at 6 p.m. here at the townhouse in the front lawn. The Town of Somers Holiday Celebration will be Sunday, December 5th, here again at the townhouse in the front lawn. The Knights of Columbus will be lighting the nativity scene at 3 p.m. and then from 3:30 to 5, there will be lots of fun and games going on, including some music, the tree lighting, town Christmas tradition of photos in front of the tree, and some hot chocolate.
What about the ruler?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that was part of the photos. The photos in front of the tree with the 6-foot rule.
Thank you.
Well, at this point, what? I
That's,
mean,
that's
there's
my
people-
legacy.
There's people who've been taking it for 8 years
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
So it's great. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Oh,
apologize.
there you go.
That was my
Me
fault.
too.
Rick started it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, in 1872, suffragette Susan B. Anthony was arrested on this day by the U.S. Deputy Marshal and charged with illegally voting. In 1883, the Standard Time Zone was formed by the railroads in the U.S. and Canada. And this was a fun fact on Linda's calendar as well today. And it went on to explain that each town had its own local time. And it went by high, and it was defined by high noon, and whenever the sun was at the highest spot in your town, that's when you would go to, that would be noon, and then you would go forward. So as I said this morning, I guess that's where they got it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Very good.
Places.
In 1949, National League batter leader at .342, Jackie Robinson, 42, wins the National League MVP. We want to congratulate Brian Lanzetta and the Somers varsity soccer team for their
Title team.
for their state championships. We
Excuse
want
my
to
exuberance.
congratulate our Somers football team for winning their section, and they will be playing tomorrow night at Mayapack High School at 6 p.m. against Burnt Hills. Let's go Tuskers.
I'm going to just jump on those last. Can I talk now?
Yes,
Thank you.
I wanted to
appreciate
be
it.
the one
No,
to do
that's-
the congratulations.
I just wanted to say that last weekend was really one of the best sports weekends I've had in ages. Didn't involve any pro sports, and I was at the Somers football game Friday night, which the second half was one of the most exciting halves of football I've seen in ages.
If you like that kind of excitement.
That's it.
Some of us don't, there might be screaming.
And I was also at the soccer game on Sunday. We have a very good family friend whose son is one of the captains. And I will say, he said probably 4 or 5 years ago, when he was coaching all these boys in the youth league, he said, these guys will win a state title when they're seniors. So Hopper, everybody knows who Hopper is in the soccer world. Hopper was 100% right. Congratulations, Patty. It is so true. I managed to go to, I think, 3 out of the 4 state games that they had. And they were just amazing. I mean, I'm not even a soccer guy, and it was some of the best soccer I've ever seen. So,
Well, let me just say about the boys soccer team. This was Brian.
Turnabout is fair play.
This was Brian Lanzetta's team. This is his second state championship as a new coach. I had the pleasure to see him when they returned. Councilman Faulkner was kind enough to arrange for the Somers Police, Fire Department, Westchester County Police to greet the bus and drive it up to the high school. And when Brian came off the bus, gave a speech, I saw him at the end of his speech and gave him a hug and told him how proud I was of him. I coached him as a young man in lacrosse, and he's a local guy. It just doesn't get any better than that, and which gives more credence to the fact that Somers is truly a title town.
You coach more people on the football team than you did on the soccer team. So,
Well, it wasn't.
Lacrosse,
You-
lacrosse. Let's
No,
come back
I
to that.
was, I
3
coached
weeks, Patty.
football and lacrosse. I didn't.
no,
coach
more
soccer.
of the coaches on the football.
Oh, I see.
team
Yes, I did.
Than
right.
the soccer.
Well, and when they win the state championship, I will do the same.
I'll just point that out.
And Patty handed me the brackets, and it could be exciting because we are playing Burn Hills, as she indicated, and Rye, who we beat over the weekend. People may not know this, but every 7 years, each one section has 2 entries into an alternate into or an at-large. And this was our year. So both teams that played, even though we won the section, both of those teams advanced to the state bracket. So Rye is playing Menacing Valley, who had an upset win over
Who had an
Cornwall.
Amazing game against
Yeah,
Cornwall.
unbelievable. But if, when we win tomorrow night, and if Rye were to win, we could see them on November 26th again
In Middletown. yeah.
in Middletown.
Okay, Middletown. And then if we advance, it's what,
Syracuse.
December 2nd?
December 3rd, which is a
December 3rd.
Friday,
Friday night.
at 3 PM in Syracuse.
In Syracuse.
Carrier Dome.
Good stuff, man. So be there tomorrow night. Cheer them on.
Okay, so.
You have to buy tickets
Yeah, online.
online, unless I think if you have some younger kids, somebody told me it's on the page. I didn't see it. You might be able to do something there, but
And it's not going
That's
to be
just
on
a
local
mail
live.
back.
You have to go to the state website.
which usually costs money.
Yep.
Okay,
I think it's $10
so
worth.
what site do you go to buy tickets?
It's
That's on there
the,
too.
it's
Is it nfhsnetwork.com?
No, it's,
That's where the game is.
That's different.
oh yeah, NYSPHSAA.
you see where it's.
New York State Public High School Athletic Association. You buy tickets for regional and state play.
Or
on
get
that.
tickets with GoFan. But you go on there and I think the tickets are $9. It's $8 and then $1 for soccer was more expensive. Soccer was $10. And then you can buy them when you go up, they're on your phone, then you go in. So, but let's everybody get out there. We got lucky winning there. We're playing in Mayapack. So it's almost,
Yeah.
it's a home game for us when you're thinking about playing Burnt Hills,
Yeah, true, true.
which is up outside Albany.
Okay. Any further concerns, comments?
No, to that point from the supervisor, thank you to Somers Police and Fire for
Yes.
providing that extra.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was,
Quite an emotional moment.
they were very
The
excited.
sirens were going
Oh
and they're
my-
going up 139. And I had just come home. I said, I think there's something wrong somewhere. There's a disaster. I thought, no, going to high school. So yeah, there was a lot. It was a
I
lot. You did
never-
a good job.
I never realized how long it really is from 7-Eleven to the high school when you're driving behind an ambulance with its horn blasting and the lights. I had to put my sun visor down.
Yeah.
So I didn't go into
It was quite a
epileptic
parade.
seizure.
It's quite a parade.
But it
Some
was,
kids will never forget. You
No,
know,
it's
it's a
like-
high school
Oh,
kid.
it's
It's like out of a movie.
it was a great night. It was a great night.
It was a great game.
So I would like to make a motion to close the meeting and,
I thought you were adjourning.
Yes.
oh, excuse me.
We
Did
are.
I say close?
Yeah, you didn't
I'd
mean.
like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. And we're going to move to executive session, not to return to the
Right.
meeting.
To discuss.
Second.
Yeah, to discuss.
Oh, discussion of personnel and contract. Do I have
Second.
a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Good night, Somers. Night.